Morning, one and all. Thanks for joining us on our morning walk. Fancy and I are out here enjoying a nice muggy morning. If you couldn't tell from the intro there's a lot of fog and it's rather humid, but it's good. It's a great day, isn't it, Fancy? Well, if you're watching this video on the day it was published, it's July 4th, 2024. It's actually the third when I'm filming it, but because of some happen chance, it's going to post on the 4th, which is really kind of beneficial for me because of the topic that I was going to talk about this morning. I've been thinking about this for a while, and just so happened that today was the day I was going to talk about it. And tomorrow's the 4th, so you guys have seen it on the 4th, and it's a good thing. So I want to talk about the revolution. All right. And this is going to kind of be the Cliff Notes, wish.com version of the revolution. So if I gloss over any of the pertinent facts, please forgive me, okay? But let's talk about the revolution. So back in the late 1700s, the people were suffering underneath a king that was a tyrant. He was unresponsive to the people's needs and wishes, and it was a long, drawn-out beginning to the revolution. And finally, the people rose up. They revolted against the king, the crown, and it was a long, drawn-out, bloody affair. And when it was over, the revolutionaries were victorious. Well, they ended up killing much of the ruling class. And once they were done killing the ruling class, the revolutionaries turned on their compatriots and they started killing fellow patriots. And it ended up a complete mess, and the revolution failed, and the country ended up with another emperor, another tyrant. Now I know you're sitting there, you're thinking to yourself, hey, hold on a second, this didn't happen in the American Revolution. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. G must be smoking something this morning. Talking about killing the king and ended up with an emperor. Well, I'm not talking about the American Revolution, I'm talking about the French Revolution. So the French Revolution happened, and the official start of it is noted as 1789. Shortly after the American Revolution was finished, 1783 is like the official ending of the hostilities in the American Revolution. And in fact, the colonies, we were still trying to draft all the pertinent documents and form a functional government when the French Revolution took off, and the people of France were empowered by what had happened in America. They were able to rise up and throw off the tyranny of the king and get their freedoms. Now the American Revolution and the French Revolution have some things in common. In both cases, there was an enlightenment before the revolution took place, and they were both based on liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I'm not talking about the modern definition of leftist Marxist liberalism. I'm talking about true classical liberalism based on the ideas of the classic Greek philosophers and that. So they were both fueled by the same thing. So how in God's name did the Americans get it so right and end up with a form of government and a country that inarguably has been beneficial for the human race, whereas the French ended up with a revolutionary government that was killing patriots at the end of the day, and ended up failing so badly that France ended up with an emperor, Napoleon. How did that happen? And it can be attributed to one thing in my mind. This is from my reading of history and understanding. It can be contributed to one thing and one thing only, and that is anger. The French Revolution, even though it had its roots in the same things as the American Revolution, was spawned by anger. And one thing that history's shown us is revolutions that are spawned by anger and revenge never succeed. And why is this important? Why am I talking about it on July 4th? Well, because there's a lot of anger out there. There are a lot of angry people on both sides. And we see it in the way we interact with each other on a daily basis. We see that anger seething underneath. Whenever there's demonstrations or something, they end up being violent. We see people physically attacking, and sometimes killing their political opponents, right? And I'm not saying that. Hang on a second. Fancy's onto a smell. She's checking it out. I think there was a coyote or something running up and down the road this morning. Anyway, you know, their actions are fueled by anger and jealousy and envy, and that's not the way to run a revolution, all right? And I say that's not the way to run a revolution because, quite frankly, I believe that a revolution is in order to get things back to the way they should be in the United States. And just because I use the word revolution, I'm not talking about going out and fighting wars, fighting battles and destruction and stuff like that. There are tons of ways that you can carry out a revolution. Do you realize, I didn't know this. Well, I knew it, but it just wasn't in the forefront of my mind. That if you look at the timeline of the American Revolution, it actually goes from about 1765 to 1783, to the end of hostilities. And you know, the official start of the revolution that they teach everybody in school is 1775, 1776 time frame. You know, the intolerable acts in 1774, 75, and then the beginning of hostilities in 1776. But it actually started way before that. And it started with people identifying the problems that they face with the crown and building the ideology that ended up leading to the separation of the colonies from the king. Now, you could make a good argument, and I go back and forth on this. So the Americans, quote unquote, were actually British citizens. So on the face of it, it really wasn't a revolution, it was a civil war. Well, one of the key factors in my mind in a revolution versus a civil war is an outside force being, you know, the tyranny or whatever you want to call it, coming from an outside force, and the people that are revolting are not revolting against themselves, they're revolting against this outside force. And you know, if you think about it, the American colonies, even though they were British citizens, they were completely different than the British citizens in Great Britain and all these other places. The relationship between them and the crown was completely different than what oh, hang on a second. We don't want to show you that. She's taking a break. But the relationship was completely different. And I think here in the United States, you know, we hear talk about a civil war happening, and you know, I'm to the point now where, you know, the United States government in its present form, with the bureaucracy and its socialist ideas and Marxist ideas, is a foreign entity. So anything that we do at this point, and this is just me. There's nothing foundational on, you know, nothing groundbreaking or crazy or anything like that. This is just me. So anything that we do to try to break free from this system is revolutionary. So if we're going to have a revolution, we need to understand why we're doing what we're doing. We don't need to be fueled by anger. We don't need to take that anger. And like I said, there's a lot of anger out there, especially, you know, I'm not just talking about liberals burning down cities. I'm talking about conservatives and patriots who are completely angry and are ready to do something. And they talk some crazy talk sometimes. Not gonna lie, talk some crazy talk. But we have to understand why we believe what we believe. And Tag and I had talked about that during our 28 Principles of Liberty videos. If you haven't watched those, if you're new to the channel, there's a 17-part series that Tag from Life Done Free and I did on the 28 Principles of Liberty as found in the Constitution. And you know, they're a couple of years old. They're kind of rough around the edges, kind of raw. We're still kind of learning the trade. Going back and watching them sometimes, it's kind of cringeworthy for me. But the information in them is good and sound. You know, so that's what I want you guys to think about on the day, on July 4th. Actually, you should be thinking about it all the time, but especially on July 4th. Why do we believe what we believe? Are we looking for change because we're angry about it, or are we looking for change because we honestly and truly understand and believe the ideology that we say we do? All right? Because if we want to succeed, we can't do it out of anger. And calling for taking up arms and doing all this other crazy stuff like a lot of people are doing now isn't going to work. You know, Bill Mollison, I've actually got a t-shirt in our bonfire store that's got this on the back of it. Bill Mollison, the grandfather of permaculture, said if you want to start a revolution, plant a garden. If only 10% of the people in the United States became food independent, the system would collapse. Big Ag would collapse, and the rest of it would just follow. So think about it as you go out through the day. Celebrate the day. You know, today's not a day for getting drunk and shooting fireworks off and having picnics, although that's what a lot of people are going to do, and I'll probably be doing it later on this afternoon too. But it's about the ideology and the principles behind the freedoms that have given us the greatest opportunity given to a people in all of mankind since Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, to be honest with you. And we don't want to squander it by fighting against the system through anger and hate and envy. We want to do it because we want to raise up the human spirit, and we want to become free, truly free. All right. Hey, listen, we are almost back to the house. Thanks for coming on the walk with us. I hope everybody has a safe and fun July 4th. And here's kind of a wild thought. So last weekend, there were people going through that weekend that had no idea that this was the last weekend with all their fingers. How dark is that? But it's true. You know, we need to make sure we're safe. Make sure that you give everybody a hug and let them know that you love them and appreciate them. Most importantly, as you're out there doing what you're doing, go pursue a life done free today, guys. Take care. Thanks, Milo.